Have you ever wondered how the smallest, seemingly most helpless animals manage to survive in a world where strength, speed, and sharp teeth dominate the food chain? If you've ever assumed that the weak are always prey, prepare to be wildly wrong. Because in nature, survival isn't always about fighting harder. Sometimes it's about fighting weirder. This is where things get beautifully unhinged. Take, for instance, the Texas horned lizard, a squat little reptile that lies quietly in the desert sand, nearly invisible. It looks harmless, until a predator gets too close. That's when this lizard pulls off a move so bizarre it sounds made up. It shoots blood out of its eyes. Yes, you heard that right. When threatened, this lizard increases the pressure in the blood vessels around its eyes until they rupture, blasting a fine stream of blood directly at its attacker. The blood isn't just shocking, it also smells and tastes awful, especially to dogs and coyotes, making them recoil in disgust. One well-aimed shot, and the predator often abandons the hunt altogether, wiping its eyes in confusion while the lizard slips away. Just imagine that. Nature gave it no claws, no venom, not even speed, so it weaponized its own veins. And if you think that's wild, let me introduce you to the bombardier beetle, a creature no bigger than your thumbnail, but with an explosive secret. Inside its abdomen, it stores two chemicals, hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinone. In separate chambers, when it's attacked, it combines them in a special reaction chamber, igniting a chemical explosion that heats up to nearly 100 degrees Celsius. The resulting blast is fired from its rear end with a sharp popping sound, spraying boiling, noxious fluid directly onto its enemy. And here's the kicker: the beetle can aim. It rotates its abdomen to shoot in almost any direction, like a living turret. Despite its tiny size, it's armed with a defense system that would make a chemist jealous. But that's nothing compared to what happens in the deep sea. Meet the hagfish, an ancient, jawless, eel-like creature that doesn't bite or run. Instead, it oozes. And I don't mean a little slime. I mean gallons of the stuff, expanding into a thick, mucus-like cloud that clogs the gills and mouths of any predator foolish enough to try and bite it. Sharks have been seen spitting out hagfish in mid-attack, gagging on the sticky mess. The hagfish simply slithers away, leaving behind a swirling, snot-colored distraction. And just in case that wasn't weird enough, the hagfish can tie its own body into a knot and slide the slime off itself like it's peeling off a raincoat. No teeth, no speed, just mucus mastery. Then there's the caterpillar. Not just any caterpillar, but one that's perfected the art of playing dead. When touched or threatened, it curls up, goes limp, and lies perfectly still, sometimes for minutes on end. Some species even release a subtle scent that mimics decay, fooling predators into thinking they've stumbled upon a corpse. Birds that typically feast on caterpillars lose interest quickly, moving on in search of something fresher and more appetizing.
Ow.
It's not just acting, it's method acting. And for this little larva, it works like a charm. These strange creatures don't just survive, they thrive, often in ecosystems filled with faster, stronger, deadlier hunters. Why? Because nature, in its infinite madness and brilliance, rewards those who play the game differently. These aren't accidents or gimmicks. They read the results of millions of years of pressure, shaping creatures into weapons of confusion, disgust, and illusion. But believe me when I say, this is just the warm-up. Because what comes next will take Bizarre to an entirely new level. We're about to meet an animal that breaks off its own limbs on purpose, one that lights itself up like a flash grenade to disappear, and a bird so cunning it fakes injury to save its young. Keep watching. The weird is just getting warmed up. If you thought the creatures in the first part were bizarre, brace yourself. What you're about to discover takes the idea of self-defense to a whole new level of wild. Some animals don't just fight back or flee. They're willing to sacrifice parts of their own bodies to survive. Like the Dumbo octopus, a deep-sea marvel with a defense strategy that's equal parts shocking and genius. When danger approaches, maybe a hungry shark or a deep-diving seal, this octopus doesn't waste time squirting ink or darting away. Instead, it detaches one of its own arms, leaving the severed limb writhing in the water like a decoy, buying precious seconds while the predator is momentarily distracted by what looks like a still living target. In that brief window of confusion, the real octopus slips silently into the darkness. What makes this defense remarkable isn't just the sacrifice, but the precision. The octopus knows when to cut, where to cut, and trusts its body to regenerate later. Painful, possibly, effective. Absolutely. But if tearing off your own limbs sounds extreme, then meet the flashlight fish, a creature straight out of science fiction. Living in the pitch-black depths of the ocean, where sunlight never reaches, this fish has evolved to use bioluminescence like a flash grenade. When threatened, it flashes bursts of bright, pulsing light from organs beneath its eyes, creating a disorienting visual overload. In total darkness, the effect is dazzling. Strobe-like flickers confuse predators who can no longer track movement or shape. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the fish shuts off the lights and vanishes, leaving behind only empty water and a stunned attacker. In this arena of perpetual night, light is both shield and sword, and those who wield it well become invisible. Back on land in the fields and forests, another master of deception plays an entirely different game. Imagine a predator creeping toward a nest filled with helpless chicks, and just as it nears the prize, a bird appears out of nowhere, broken, flailing, pathetic. It drags one wing limply, hops with effort, and cries out as if in agony. This isn't a tragedy, it's a performance. The bird is perfectly healthy. What you're seeing is the broken wing act, a decoy maneuver used by countless ground-nesting birds like killdeer or lapwings. The goal: lure the predator away from the nest. The predator, smelling an easy kill, follows the injured adult, growing more confident with every step, until at the last second, the bird miraculously recovers and takes flight. Strong and swift, leaving the confused predator behind, and her chicks untouched. This isn't just a defensive reflex. It's strategy, acting, sacrifice. The bird risks her life on the assumption that she can convince her enemy to follow, and it works. Because in nature, the most convincing liar often lives the longest. One severed arm, a burst of blinding light, a bird willing to die for her children. Or at least make it look that way. These aren't just random tricks. They're time-tested, pressure-forged adaptations that walk the tightrope between survival and surrender. What they reveal is that the animal kingdom isn't a battleground of brute force, but a theater of the unexpected. The more you watch, the clearer it becomes. The weirdest creatures are often the wisest. But don't think for a second that we've reached peak strangeness. Oh no. Ahead of us lies a parade of life forms that take the art of deception, distraction, and danger to astonishing extremes. There are animals that harden their skin into body armor, creatures that pretend to be venomous insects to avoid being eaten, and some that scare off predators by behaving like they're possessed. What's coming next will challenge not only what you think animals can do, it'll shake what you believe nature even allows. Stay close. Just when you think you've grasped the extent of nature's creativity, along comes a set of creatures that redefine the word unbelievable. This is where defense stops being just an act of escape and becomes something more theatrical or mind-bending, an evolutionary spectacle where deception, imitation, and body transformation take center stage. Imagine a caterpillar that doesn't try to hide or run when it senses danger. Instead, it does something far more audacious. It transforms its appearance to look like a venomous snake. The hawk moth caterpillar, when threatened, expands part of its body to reveal eye-like spots and a hooded shape that mimics the head of a cobra. Then it sways side to side, as if ready to strike. A bird that was about to pounce suddenly hesitates. In that brief second of doubt, the caterpillar buys its life. It has no venom, no bite, but what it does have is one of the most convincing disguises in the animal world. A bold bluff that leverages instinctive fear embedded deep in the predator's mind. And speaking of bold, few defenses match the intensity of the Malaysian exploding ant. Yes, exploding. These ants have evolved specialized muscles and chemical sacs in their bodies, and when under threat, especially when protecting the colony, a worker ant will contract violently, rupturing its own body to release a toxic, sticky secretion that entangles or kills the attacker. It's a one-way trip, a kamikaze mission of self-sacrifice. But in the context of colony survival, it's a trade-off nature has allowed. It is not defense for the self, it's defense for the community, and it blurs the line between survival and martyrdom. Now, from the suicidal to the just plain surreal, we turn to the hairy frog, a creature that sounds fluffy and adorable, but whose defense strategy is straight-up horror movie material. When attacked, this West African amphibian literally breaks its own bones, pushing sharp claws through its skin to fend off attackers. Imagine that. Snapping your own bones on purpose to grow claws you don't usually have. Scientists still aren't entirely sure how the frog manages to survive this gruesome transformation, or if it can retract those claws later, but what? Clear is that pain and preservation go hand in hand in this frog's bizarre biology. It's not bluffing. It becomes something else entirely. A weapon. On the other end of the spectrum, some animals opt not for aggression, but for psychological warfare. Take the opossum, nature's dramatic actor. When faced with danger, it doesn't fight or flee. It collapses into a dead faint. Mouth open, tongue lolling, body limp. Secretes a foul-smelling fluid from its anal glands to complete the illusion of death and decay. Predators, disgusted and uninterested in rotten meals, move on. Moments later, the opossum wakes up, shakes it off. A real-life resurrection act that saved countless lives. This isn't weakness, it's commitment to the role. And that's the recurring theme we keep seeing, isn't it? These creatures survive not because they're the strongest or the fastest, but because they've leaned into the extreme, embracing traits so unexpected that their enemies don't know how to respond. Whether it's pretending to be something deadly, blowing themselves up, turning their skeletons into blades, or faking their own death with Oscar-worthy flair, they thrive because they are unpredictable. The more we explore, the more it becomes obvious that in nature, unpredictability is a superpower. And it doesn't stop here. Next, we'll encounter creatures that use ultraviolet color shifts to disappear in plain sight. Animals that produce sounds so disturbing it causes paralysis. And even insects that grow parasite-like structures to fool predators into thinking they're already infected. The defensive playbook of nature is deep, dark, and endlessly imaginative. And we're only halfway through it. The deeper we go into the wild world of bizarre defense, the more reality begins to bend. Out here, survival is not just about teeth or speed, it's about bending perception itself. This is where some creatures start using not just flesh and instinct, but light, sound, and psychological distortion as tools of escape. Let's begin with the invisible animals that hide not with color, but with ultraviolet camouflage. There are fish and reptiles whose skin reflects UV light in such a way that, to predators who rely on UV vision, they vanish entirely. To the human eye, they still there, shimmering faintly in the reef or basking on rocks. But to their would-be hunters, it's like staring into nothing. They not just hiding. They stepped out of the enemy's visible universe. Now jump from light to vibration, deep in the rainforests of South America, where a tiny insect has learned to weaponize sound you can't hear. Meet the resonance beetle. When disturbed, it emits ultrasonic vibrations, frequencies far above human hearing, that disrupt the inner ears and spatial senses of predators like birds and bats. The result? Momentary confusion, nausea, or sudden retreat? It's not a scream or a roar. It's a subtle biological hack that throws the enemy's brain out of balance. And while we're on the topic of illusions, some of nature's weirdest defenders go Elin on the grotesque. Dealies. Certain caterpillars and larvae in tropical jungles grow structures on their backs that mimic fungal infections or parasite infestations. Their bodies become lumpy, blotchy, gray-green masses that look sick. Really sick. To the untrained eye, or rather the instinct-driven predator, these creatures seem diseased, dying, or already dead. And that's more than enough reason to pass them by. In nature, a healthy snack is tempting. But a corpse with mold? That's off the menu. And then there are the shapeshifters, not metaphorical ones. Real biological shape changers, like the mimic octopus. While most octopuses can change color, the mimic octopus takes it further by altering the texture, posture, and entire silhouette of its body. One moment it blends into the sandy ocean floor. The next, it stretches its limbs to resemble a venomous lionfish, or flattens and undulates to look like a poisonous flatfish. It can even impersonate a sea snake, by hiding 6 arms and waving to striped ones. It doesn't just hide, it plays roles, deceiving predators into thinking it's something far more dangerous. And then there's the opposite approach. Some creatures don't hide at all. Instead, they get so grotesque, so alarming that no one dares get close. Enter the demon worm, a deep-sea species that, when provoked, arches its back, opens a gaping mouth ringed with red false teeth, and hisses like steam escaping a pipe. At the same time, it secretes a metallic-smelling cloud of mucus. It has no venom, no bite, but everything about its display screams "do not touch," and that's the point. It's a living warning sign, the kind that relies on fear and uncertainty rather than force. Because here's the truth. In nature, being mysterious often makes you untouchable. Creatures, from UV vanishing acts to fake fungal infections, to octopuses that cosplay, and worms that channel nightmares, they've mastered not just escape, but the manipulation of predator psychology. They don't need to win fights. They just need to make the enemy think twice. And when hesitation sets in, escape becomes possible. But we're not done yet. Because ahead lies a final category of creatures so cunning, so eerily precise, that they've built entire identities around impersonation. In the final chapter, we'll meet animals that copy venomous species, fish that look like toxic coral, and insects that impersonate predators just to be left alone. You won't be able to tell where one species ends and the deception begins. And neither will their enemies. Get ready. This is the last layer of disguise. And it's the strangest one yet. Everything you've seen so far, bloodshot lizards, slime-bombing fish, self-amputating octopuses, ultraviolet cloaks, rotting disguises, and sonic assaults, has only been the overture. Because now we enter the final act of nature's strangest performance, the realm of the ultimate mimics. Creatures that don't just protect themselves by hiding or scaring, but by becoming something else entirely. Let's begin with the monarch butterfly. Iconic, unmistakable, and toxic. Predators that try to eat it once rarely make the same mistake, but lurking among the leaves are imposters, completely harmless butterflies like the viceroy, which have evolved to mirror the monarch as vivid. Orange and black patterns so perfectly that birds can tell them apart. This is Batesian mimicry. Survival by deception, by wearing the face of danger without actually being dangerous. No venom, no strength, just a well-played bluff. But mimicry doesn't stop at wings. In coral reefs brimming with venomous creatures, some fish survive by becoming coral themselves, imitating the texture, color, and movement of deadly sea fans or spiny toxic polyps. They don't swim, they sway rhythmically, with the current blending in until they are indistinguishable from the lethal background. Invisibility by association, a masterclass in blending danger with stillness. Elsewhere in shallow forest streams, a strange little insect stages a performance that would fool even the most watchful predator. It's the treehopper, but not just any. It's the ant-mimicking treehopper, which not only matches the dark, glossy color of aggressive ants, but also copies their gait, limb movements, and group behavior. It walks like an ant, moves like an ant, and even pretends to clean itself like ants do. Why? Because anything that messes with ants usually regrets it. By imitating danger, it becomes invisible. And just when you think mimicry has reached its peak, nature throws in the stonefish, a creature that isn't mimicking another animal at all, but posing as an object, a rock, covered in mottled skin, algae, and wart-like bumps. The stonefish sits motionless on the ocean floor, not just hiding from predators, but waiting for prey. Most fish have to chase. The stonefish just waits. And when a snack swims by, it opens its cavernous mouth in a blink, swallowing whole. You can't escape what you don't even recognize as alive. Doesn't matter how fast you are. If your brain never labeled the threat, you were already too late. And that is the final lesson. These creatures, the butterfly fakers, the coral imitators, the insect actors, and the stone-faced assassins, don't win by overpowering or outrunning. They win by being unreadable, by breaking every expectation of what a threat should look like. The less you understand them, the safer they are. They become puzzles too complicated to attack. In nature, Where hesitation can be fatal, confusion is a shield. Across millions of years, evolution has refined these strange behaviors. And what we call bizarre is really just nature being wildly effective. At the deepest level, defense isn't about armor or venom. It's about controlling what others think of you, mastering perception, and surviving by slipping through the cracks of logic. When you reflect on this entire journey, from lizards that weaponize their veins to frogs that break their bones, from caterpillars that cosplay snakes to birds that fake injuries for love, you realize that nature isn't random or chaotic. It's too clever for that. It doesn't settle for one strategy. It builds entire operas of adaptation. And if there's one truth we walk away with, it's this. Life doesn't follow the rules. It reinvents them over and over again in ways that leave us awestruck, disturbed, and inspired all at once. And that, perhaps, is the most extraordinary defense of all.